everyone, welcome back to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in for the noontime show. Would like to thank Ray Rickman for coming in to give his big view. And I'd like to welcome my next guest here into the studio, Roseann Sdoia Materia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
You've got your book as a survivor of the Boston Marathon bombing. Perfect Strangers, Friendship, Strength, and Recovery After Boston's Worst Day. You go around talking about the book, you're a motivational speaker, you also have RoboStrong. You've got so much going on, turning such a tragedy into such positivity and inspiration for others. Let's go back to that day. Let's go through what you have been through and everything you've written about and where your life is 5 years later, which I never could have imagined.
Never could have imagined where I am today. So, back on April 15, 2013, I was doing something that I'd always done year after year going into the Boston Marathon. Little did I know how it was going to end up, but I ended up being near the second bomb that went off and ended up becoming a right leg above knee amputee from that day. The further we get away from it, the further in my mind it never really happened, although I live with it every day with my prosthesis. It's one of those things that you're lucky that your brain lets you forget what happened. But it was an awful, crazy day. But since that day, so much good has come from it. And the book that we wrote, Perfect Strangers, isn't really about the bombing itself that day, but really the good that's what happened afterwards. We all know the tragedies and the sadness and the effect it had on people, but not everybody knows the good that came out of it. So the book is about myself, 3 of the first responders, although I had many first responders help me that day. 3 of them I forged this really tight bond with, and 1 I ended up marrying. So, I look back at the day and it was awful, horrendous, horrific, however you want to look at it. But the good that's come from it, it's so important for me to share that story and let people know that you can, overcome such evil and such tragedy.
So when in the process of recovery, Roseann, did you think to yourself, I want to tell my story, I need to tell my story? Because as you said, it's just not what you saw in the news with the images and the imagery and knowing of the destruction that was caused, but it's the personal stories. When did you start to really think, I need to put this down on paper?
It took some time. In the beginning, I think we were all thrown into the public limelight, and somewhere along the way, I just figured I would go with it. I also feel as though that it was very therapeutic for me to talk about it. I think mentally, that's why I've had an easier time with recovery mentally, because I did speak about it all the time. I still don't really understand what happened that day, why it happened, whatever, but the more I talk about it, the easier it is for me to not dwell on it and think of all the good. So probably within the first 2 years, people had mentioned, you should write a book, and they also mentioned that you should do some public speaking. So if enough people tell you enough times, and as many as I was told, you should write a book, we started to put the pen to paper and do it. So it took about 2 years to realize that we should do it, and then it took another 2 years really to write it.
The writing process.
Correct. Yeah, it's a long process. It's a full-time job.
And talk with us a little bit about that. You worked with Jennifer Jordan and putting this together. I mean, I always love to talk with authors when they come in. Yours was a story that had to be told. It was in you. But what was the process like of really, again, going through the machinations of writing a book?
Again, very therapeutic for me. Coincidentally, even though I had spoken with Shayna, Shores, and Mike, the 3 first responders that are in the book with me, and I knew their story of what happened that day, where they were, and all that, but as I was going through the editing process, it was a page turner to me. Even though I know how it all ends and how it turns out, I just never heard their experience in such detail and know really who they were prior to April 15, 2013. So as I was going through the editing process, it was just amazing to know their stories and know what they went through, and it just helped me a lot to really bond even more with them, and to know that we all really were meant to be together and to know each other.
Did you find out anything new from your husband during the book writing process? Or because he's your husband, you feel like you got it all from him?
Well, you know, we had a lot of time to spend together because he did help in the beginning with taking me to different appointments and things like that. But I think I did get to know him more and how he really likes to be in the background. He's not one to be on a book cover, so he likes to be really in the background. And he's just one of those people that I think you learn something about all the time. And coincidentally, one of the crazy things I did learn about him is when he was being born in the hospital, they happened to have a fire alarm, and the firemen happened to be there. Not to say that that's what made him become a firefighter.
I think it might have been.
But, you know, it's just coincidental that that kind of all had circulated around him when he was coming into the world, and now he's a firefighter. So I just thought that was a kind of a cutesy story.
And so what's it meant to you to be able to go out, both motivational speaking, but also on the book tour? You're going around, you're bringing your book, you're talking with folks. What has that process been like? I mean, continually sharing your story and getting feedback from folks who, you know, want to hear from you and want to hear what you have to tell.
I feel that it's very important because after every place that I speak, or if I'm doing a book signing, someone will come up to me and say, I read your book. I have someone in my life that I've shared your book with, or that I want them to read, or thank you, you've helped me on how to deal with something. And it's not rocket science on how I've approached it, but I think we as humans have to be reminded every once in a while, because we do get so consumed with the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and downs in life, and, you know, why is this happening to me? But it's also happening to so many other people. We all have our challenges, we all have our issues, and if I can help somebody, guide them a little bit more, especially if they've just become a recent amputee, or they know someone who's going to become an amputee, if I can give them any advice, there's no Amputee for Dummies book out there, which might be my next book, because there's a lot of little secrets to learn, and I feel like it's really important for me to share that, and also to share all the great charities that have come out of that day. There's people doing so much good. The Heather Abbott Foundation, A Leg Forever. There's so many more of them that are helping people who cannot afford prosthesis because they're so expensive. They're helping fund them, which is amazing.
So talk with us a little bit about RoboStrong.
So RoboStrong is, I guess, more or less my company in the sense of that's what I do the public speaking under and do the book signings and sales under. And I really want people to be able to find those charities to donate. After the bombing, a lot of people said you should start a charity as well, and at that time I wasn't really mentally ready to do a charity for myself. And in the process, all these other charities came up, and I thought that it was important that, not that I draw on the same pool of people, but I help support these other charities and really get them the contacts and the people that can donate, and really support them, because there are so many good charities out there, and there's so many that are great that have been established for many, many, many years, the Jimmy Fund and so many others, and I just want to be able to help support those that are starting new and get people connected.
And so you talk about thinking of writing the Amputee for Dummies book to let folks know who are going through the process. I'm sure it's very personal, person by person. But have you established a rapport community with other folks who've again, have prosthesis and have gone through the process?
Yes, and that's been a huge help, I think, for me, because you don't know what to expect. And I did know one person who was an amputee prior to all this, but I hadn't talked to him in many, many years, a former college friend. And, he reached out to me right away, and I do rely on him for advice. And who knew that putting Velcro on the bottom of my foot and my shoe would help to keep the shoe on a little bit more? There's just weird, crazy things. Or if you get a blister, what do you do how do you handle the blister? Or, there's so many different products that are coming out now. They say if you're going to be an amputee, this is the time to be an amputee. And to have those resources of know who's a better prosthetist, who is better at helping you learn how to run, who can help get you a running leg, a beach leg, a swim leg, a bike leg, a dress-up leg, and you just don't know where to look or where to start.
Yeah.
So I rely on this new circle of friends. I call it like we're a little club that no one ever really wants to be a member of, but if you are, there's so many good people within that club, and I feel like I need to pay it back as these people did for me. So we had a lot of veterans from the Semplify Americas Fund come out immediately. They've been huge. The Challenge Athletes Foundation has been huge, and they've been all amputees that have walked in, and I said to myself, I will be able to walk normal like that and not know, hopefully people won't know I'm an amputee.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come share with us your story, your book. You'll be out this weekend. You've got a book signing.
We have a book signing actually next Thursday at Barnes & Noble in Middletown, Rhode Island, and I'm looking forward to it. I haven't done one in Rhode Island yet, so.
And then you're participating in a leadership conference in September.
September 20th, Rise. Looking forward to both.
We'll put links onto both of those as well. Of course, the book as well. But Roseann Sdoia Materia, I appreciate your taking the time to come in and share your story with folks here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with our next guest.